What happens when your generosity is mistaken for weakness? When your kindness, instead of winning loyalty, breeds entitlement, when mercy only sharpens the knife your enemies will use against you? Machiavelli warned us kindness has its limits, and when those limits are crossed, only one law remains: the law of necessary cruelty. In this lesson, I will show you when to stop forgiving, when to strike without hesitation, and how to do it in such a way that no one will ever dare challenge you again. You have been taught since childhood that kindness is a virtue, that generosity wins hearts, and that the more you give, the more you will receive. But Machiavelli would smirk at such innocence. He understood a cruel truth that polite society prefers to ignore. When kindness has no boundaries, it stops being admired and starts being exploited. You see, kindness is not a permanent crown you wear upon your head. It is a tool, a weapon even, and like any weapon, it must be used with precision. When you scatter it freely, without thought, without measure, it loses all sharpness. People do not cherish what they receive without cost. They begin to expect it. And worse, they begin to believe they are entitled to it. Picture this: you lead a small group, perhaps a business, perhaps a circle of allies, perhaps even a family. You decide to lead with warmth. You are forgiving when mistakes are made, patient when deadlines are missed, generous when resources are short. At first, your people appreciate you. They nod, they thank you, they praise your fairness. But slowly, something changes. That same man who once apologized profusely for a small error now repeats it without hesitation. The one who once valued your generosity now demands it, as if it were a right. The respect that once filled the air begins to thin, and in its place grows a dangerous thing: complacency. Machiavelli knew that when kindness is constant and unearned, it does not inspire gratitude. It breeds contempt. Your generosity is no longer seen as a strength, but as a sign that you fear confrontation. They believe they can push further, take more, bend the rules, because they have learned there will be no true consequence. And when there is no consequence, there is no respect. History is full of rulers who learned this lesson too late. Consider the kings who lowered taxes to please the people, only to find the treasury empty and the crowd demanding even more. Consider the generals who pardoned traitors, believing in redemption, only to face betrayal again. Kindness in excess does not bind people to you. It untees the rope that holds them in check. The more you give without limit, the weaker your grip on power becomes. And yet, the danger is not just in leadership. It lives in every human relationship. Think of the friend who always lends money, the parent who always says, "Yes," the partner who forgives every slight. At first, this endless mercy feels comforting to the receiver. But soon, it changes the balance of power. The giver's voice carries less weight. Their opinions matter less. The other side begins to see them not as equals, but as tools. They're to serve, not to be respected. You might think, but surely kindness will inspire loyalty. Machiavelli would tell you, loyalty built only on kindness is loyalty that vanishes the moment someone else offers more. True loyalty comes from a careful balance, a mixture of goodwill and the quiet, lingering fear of what will happen. If that goodwill is withdrawn, the world does not operate on gratitude alone. It operates on leverage. And kindness, without a shadow of strength behind it, is leverage surrendered. If you wish your kindness to have value, it must be rare enough to feel like a gift, not common enough to feel like the air they breathe. A ruler, whether of a nation, a company, or a household, must ensure that kindness is framed by boundaries, by standards, by consequences for overstepping. Without this frame, it will collapse under the weight of expectation. Think of the lion and the shepherd. If the shepherd feeds the lion every day, the lion grows comfortable. It forgets its own hunger. It learns to expect the shepherd's hand. But if the shepherd's kindness is endless, the day will come when the lion believes it owns the shepherd. That is when danger strikes. So, what does this mean for you? It means that the more power you hold, whether over a team, a relationship, or a reputation, the more you must measure your kindness. When you are generous, do it with intent. When you forgive, make it known that forgiveness is not your default, but a deliberate choice that could just as easily have been withheld. Let people feel the weight of what could have been taken from them, even as you give. This is not about cruelty. It is about control. It is about ensuring that your generosity is seen as a strength, not as an obligation. The moment it becomes an obligation, you are no longer in control of it. They are. They will expect it, demand it, and eventually resent you if you ever withdraw it. The tragedy is that most people only realize this after it's too late. They wake up one day and discover that the people they worked hardest to help no longer listen to them. Their authority is a hollow shell. Their words carry no weight. And all because they believed that kindness alone could hold the fabric of respect together. Machiavelli's wisdom cuts through this illusion. He reminds us that to be loved without being feared is to invite eventual betrayal, and to be feared without being loved is to rule in constant danger. The true art is in the blend, in wielding kindness as a blade with a shining edge, and in letting it rest in its sheath until the right moment comes to draw it. There comes a point in every struggle for power when patience rots into weakness. You can feel it. That moment when your words no longer land, when your warnings no longer bite, when the people around you begin to test how far they can go without consequence. At first, you convince yourself it is temporary. You tell yourself one more chance, one more conversation, one more appeal to reason. But with each delay, the foundation beneath you crumbles. Machiavelli understood that power has a decay rate. Authority left undefended starts to wither. When kindness is met with abuse, when loyalty is repaid with treachery, when order is answered with defiance, something must change. And in these moments, there is only one cure, the law of necessary cruelty. The word, cruelty, makes the gentle recoil. They imagine brutality for its own sake, a tyrant's thirst for blood. But Machiavelli's cruelty was never careless. It was calculated, precise, and rare. It was applied only when the rot of disobedience threatened to spread to the entire body. Like a surgeon removing infected flesh to save the patient, necessary cruelty exists to protect the whole by cutting away the dangerous few. You may be tempted to wait, hoping that disloyalty will burn itself out. But rot never heals itself. It spreads. The employee who ignores your instructions inspires others to test the same boundaries. The friend who mocks your generosity emboldens others to take advantage. The rival who slanders you without retaliation tells the world you can be attacked without consequence. Each day you delay, your silence becomes permission. There is a dangerous illusion in believing that people will eventually realize their wrongdoing and come back into line on their own. That is not how human nature works. Machiavelli knew once defiance goes unanswered, it ceases to be defiance at all. It becomes the new order. If you do not act, you will not simply have to correct one offender. You will have to reclaim an entire system of respect that has been eroded. The moment for necessary cruelty arrives when every other measure has failed. When you have spoken, warned, and shown patience, but the offender continues to act as though your authority is negotiable. This is the point where hesitation becomes self-betrayal. In that instant, you must act, and you must act without mercy. But here is the secret: necessary cruelty is not simply about punishment. It is about timing. Too early, and you seem rash, insecure, desperate to assert yourself. Too late, and the decay has already spread beyond repair. The skill lies in sensing the exact moment when disobedience shifts from an isolated incident into a precedent others will follow. That is when you strike. Imagine a ruler with a rebellious province. If he sends his army at the first whisper of dissent, he appears paranoid and oppressive, creating fear without loyalty. But if he waits until the province has fortified itself, recruited allies, and grown bold, the cost of reclaiming it will be catastrophic. The wise ruler acts in the middle, not at the first tremor, not at the full quake, but at the exact moment when his display of force will be seen as inevitable and justified. You must be able to recognize the signs. When your instructions are openly ignored, when your goodwill is mocked in public, when people act as though the rules no longer apply to them, when allies begin to question your resolve. In these moments, necessary cruelty becomes not just an option, but a duty. For to let these challenges stand unpunished is to invite a wave of them, each bolder than the last. And do not fool yourself. People are always watching. Even those who are not involved directly are judging you. They are deciding whether you are a leader to be respected or a figure to be manipulated. They watch how you handle defiance. If they see hesitation, they will know you lack the will to enforce order. If they see swiftness and precision, they will think twice before crossing you. When the time comes, your action must be clear, final, and unshakable. This is not the hour for negotiation, for second chances, for long explanations. Necessary cruelty must be executed in such a way that the offender, and all who witness it, understand that a line has been crossed that will never be crossed again. But here lies the subtlety. Though it is called cruelty, it is not chaos. It is not done in rage, not carried out for pleasure, not made personal. It is cold, deliberate, and proportionate. The aim is not destruction for its own sake, but the restoration of balance. By acting decisively once, you may prevent the need to act repeatedly. The wound you inflict today may spare you 100 smaller cuts in the future. In the silence that follows, people will feel the weight of what has just occurred. And in that silence, the lesson will take root. That your kindness is a gift, but your authority is non-negotiable. That you may forgive, but you are not to be tested. That behind your generosity lies the steel edge of consequence. This is the heart of the law of necessary cruelty. Not cruelty for vanity, not cruelty for sport, but cruelty as the final defense of order. It is the moment where hesitation ends, where sentiment yields to strategy, where mercy steps aside so strength can take its place. When the moment for necessary cruelty arrives, hesitation is your greatest enemy. This is not the time for half measures, for cautious steps, for timid adjustments. Power, once challenged, must be restored in a single blow, one strike so decisive that no one dares test you again. Machiavelli understood that weakness is not always inaction. Sometimes, weakness is action taken in small doses, stretched over time. As if you fear the final step, the danger of repeated punishments is that they normalize defiance. If you address a betrayal with small corrections, followed by more small corrections, you do not create fear, you create a rhythm. Your enemies learn to endure the blows. They adapt. They become like a prisoner counting the days on the wall, marking each punishment as just another part of life under your rule. In this way, you do not break their will. You give them the time to harden it. But a single, calculated strike is different. It ends the matter instantly. It creates an example that resonates not just in the mind of the offender, but in the minds of all who watch. And make no mistake, people are always watching. Every act of discipline is theater. It is not simply about dealing with the one who crossed you. It is about the audience, the allies, subordinates, and rivals who are studying you for weakness. Consider the difference between the surgeon and the torturer. The torturer wounds endlessly, little by little, each cut weakening both the victim and the one who wields the knife. The surgeon cuts once, deeply, with the intent to remove the disease entirely. Necessary cruelty must be surgical. When you act with such clarity that the purpose cannot be misunderstood. The punishment is sharp, immediate, and final. And here is where many fail. They hide their act in secrecy, believing that if they punish quietly, they will avoid upsetting others. But Machiavelli knew that quiet punishments are wasted. The strike must be seen, not necessarily in every gory detail, but in such a way that the story spreads, and spreads quickly. People must know that the act occurred, must feel its shock, must understand its implications. Fear does not live in the shadows. Fear thrives in the open, where all can witness its source. This is why the execution of necessary cruelty must be public. Not because you seek humiliation for its own sake, but because a silent lesson is no lesson at all. If you remove someone from power, let the others see it happen. If you sever an alliance, make the reasons clear. If you cut off someone's access to your resources, let the boundaries be known. The act must echo in the halls, in the offices, in the streets, so that before anyone even thinks of challenging you, they remember the last one who tried. There is also a psychological reason for acting decisively and publicly. It prevents endless debate about your decision. When the punishment is swift and final, people have no time to organize resistance. Shock paralyzes opposition. The more gradual your punishment, the more room you give your enemies to rally allies, to plant doubts, to turn your act of discipline into a controversy. But when you strike suddenly and completely, the opposition has no chance to form. Think of a castle under siege. If the ruler picks off enemy soldiers one by one over weeks, the army adapts and strengthens its defense. But if the ruler opens the gates unexpectedly and sends out the cavalry in a single, overwhelming charge, the enemy scatters in confusion. The battle is won not through attrition, but through decisive force. When you deliver this strike, it must also be proportionate. Too mild, and it will not deter future defiance. Too extreme, and it will make you appear tyrannical, inviting rebellion. The art lies in precision. Enough force to destroy the challenge, enough restraint to preserve your legitimacy. People must walk away thinking, they acted because they had to. Not, they acted because they are cruel by nature. But let there be no mistake. When the moment comes, there can be no turning back. A decisive strike is a point of no return. If you act with hesitation, if you leave the door open for reversal, you invite your enemies to wait you out. They will tell themselves you can be pressured, convinced, worn down. And once that belief takes hold, it will spread like fire through dry grass. This is why the truly skilled practitioner of necessary cruelty does not simply punish. They end the threat entirely. They remove the challenger from the field so completely that the idea of resistance feels hopeless. They leave no space for rumors of a comeback, no whispers of unfinished business. The message must be, once you cross this line, you are gone. And in the moments after, there will be silence. In that silence, eyes will turn to you. People will weigh their next steps carefully. Even those who dislike your decision will think twice before making themselves the next example. And that is the point. Not to inspire love, not even to inspire agreement, but to inspire caution, to make the cost of crossing you so high that no one will dare to pay it. A decisive, public strike does more than resolve the present conflict. It changes the atmosphere around you. Conversations grow quieter when you enter the room. Rivals adjust their tone. Allies grow more attentive. You have reminded everyone of the line, and of what happens when it is crossed. This is not the result of cruelty for cruelty's sake. It is the product of discipline, precision, and the understanding that power, once lost, is rarely regained. After the decisive strike, the air changes. People speak in quieter tones. Eyes avert when they meet yours. The message has been delivered, and it has sunk deep into the minds of all who witnessed it. But Machiavelli warns, if you remain in this state for too long, if you let the shadow of fear grow unchecked, you risk turning that respect into something corrosive. Fear without balance hardens into hatred. And hatred, once it gathers in enough hearts, becomes rebellion. This is why the wise ruler, the shrewd leader, the calculating strategist, does not live forever in the moment of cruelty. They know that after the blow has fallen, after the challenge has been extinguished, the next move is not another act of punishment. It is an act of restoration. Mercy, when given after cruelty, is not weakness. It is the closing of the hand after the fist has struck. It is the reminder that the sword exists, but it does not need to swing every day. The key is that this mercy comes after the lesson has been burned into memory. Too soon, and it undermines the blow you have just delivered. Too late, and the fear solidifies into lasting resentment. The timing must be perfect. Mercy must feel like a deliberate choice, not an obligation, not a response to pressure, and certainly not a sign of regret. When you step back into mercy, you are telling your people, the punishment was not personal, it was necessary. This is what separates a ruler from a tyrant. The tyrant acts from impulse, from ego, from the hunger to dominate. The ruler acts from necessity, then puts the weapon away. And when the weapon is put away, life returns to a state of order, stability, and even prosperity. In this phase, every gesture matters. You do not apologize for what was done. An apology would weaken the perception of necessity. Instead, you shift the focus toward the health of the whole system. You speak of stability, of unity, of lessons learned. You show generosity in measured doses, not as a way to erase what happened, but as a way to demonstrate that discipline and kindness are not enemies. They are two sides of the same authority. Think of the captain of a ship who has just removed a mutineer. The crew is silent, tense, wondering if they will live now under a reign of constant fear. The captain does not linger on the punishment. Instead, they return to steering the ship, ensuring supplies are distributed, duties are fair, and the course is steady. The crew begins to see the captain not as a man driven by bloodlust, but as a leader who took one necessary act to protect them all. This is the power of mercy after cruelty. It reframes the fear. It turns it from dread into respect. People begin to understand that your harshness was not an ever-present threat, but a rare event triggered only by a clear violation of order. That understanding makes your position unshakable, because they will follow you not just out of fear of what you might do, but out of appreciation for what you choose not to do. There is also a strategic advantage in showing mercy after cruelty. It keeps people off balance in the best possible way. If all you ever show is kindness, they will test you. If all you ever show is cruelty, they will conspire against you. But if they see you capable of both, capable of punishing without hesitation, yet also capable of fairness, they cannot predict you. And unpredictability in the eyes of Machiavelli is one of the greatest shields against betrayal. The psychological shift is subtle but profound. Fear alone forces obedience, but it also breeds plotting in the shadows. When fear is tempered with the return of fairness, people stop wasting energy on rebellion. Instead, they focus on maintaining their own position within the order you have restored. They know you can destroy them if they cross the line, but they also know that as long as they remain loyal, your hand will not fall upon them. Mercy after cruelty also strengthens the bond with your allies. They see that you are not reckless, that your discipline is driven by necessity rather than vanity. They see that your actions serve the collective good, not just your own pride. This reassures them, making them more willing to stand beside you when future conflicts arise. Allies do not want to serve under a leader who is unpredictable in rage. They want one who is predictable in principle. Even your enemies will take note. The one you struck down will not rise again, but those who might have taken their place will think twice. They will remember not only the swiftness of your blow, but also the fact that, once order was restored, you did not indulge in needless cruelty. This makes it harder for them to paint you as a monster in the eyes of others. It makes your authority appear disciplined, justified, even noble. The danger, of course, is in overcompensating. Too much mercy too quickly, and people will believe your cruelty was an aberration, a moment of weakness you regret. This will invite testing again. Too little mercy for too long, and you will suffocate the loyalty you have worked to secure. Balance is everything. You must watch the mood closely. The murmurs in the hall, the looks in the crowd, the tone of conversations. You must sense when fear is beginning to harden, and then, at that precise moment, allow the warmth of mercy to soften it without dissolving it completely. Machiavelli would tell you that the greatest rulers are not those who are loved, nor those who are feared, but those who are both in just the right measure. Mercy after cruelty is how you tip the scale back toward the center, ensuring that your reign does not rest on a single leg. It is how you preserve not only the stability of your rule, but also the willingness of your people to follow you into the storms ahead. And so, the lesson is complete. Kindness without limits is a slow poison to authority. Mercy is a tool, not a virtue in itself, and cruelty, when necessary, must be swift, decisive, and unforgettable. But power is not sustained by cruelty alone. It is sustained by balance. You now understand the sequence. First, offer kindness to win loyalty. When that kindness is abused, apply necessary cruelty without hesitation. Strike once, so cleanly that the wound itself becomes the warning. And then, return to mercy, not out of softness, but out of strategy, to temper fear into respect. Machiavelli's wisdom is not a call to savagery, nor to blind compassion. It is a blueprint for rulership in the real world, where intentions mean nothing and outcomes are everything. The weak cling to the hope that kindness will always be enough. The wise know that there are moments when kindness must end. And in those moments, cruelty is not evil. It is survival. Remember this: your power is not in your kindness alone, nor in your cruelty alone, but in your ability to decide which to use, when to use it, and how to ensure that both serve your purpose. For in the game of power, mercy without strength is irrelevant, and strength without mercy is unsustainable. Choose well, and when the time comes, do not hesitate.